Sheila. Welcome back to The Truth About Death and Dying. I like to start off my podcast with a disclaimer that I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form, but I do have experience taking care of someone who was actively dying. I took care of my dad back when he was diagnosed with terminal liver cancer. So my hope for this podcast is to just bring support and tools, resources, whatever I can do to help this journey be a little easier for you or the person that is actively dying that you're caring for, or maybe you're just support for the person that's the active caregiver. I recently did a podcast based on the book called The Gentle Art of Swedish Death Cleaning. And now my mindset is sort of in that frame where I'm now starting to kind of do my own death cleaning with old photographs and paperwork and just stuff that just doesn't matter to anyone anymore. So in that mindset, I came across a book called Sorry, It's Your Problem Now Because I'm Dead. And it's an end-of-life planner is what it is. And I find this really hilarious because when you Google this, end-of-life planners, you're going to find some kind of entertaining titles for this. I'm going to give you a couple and I'm not promoting any one book in particular. I'm just giving you the resource here. But some of the titles were just putting things in order. That's as simple as it gets. And then, yup, I'm dead. Now what? Or Where I Buried the Bodies. I love that one. Or shit, I'm dead. Now what? So basically they're all the same idea. But what I flagged, of course I love to flag stuff, but I just want to kind of take you through what this book entails and what is involved with it and what's important. And having had to go through my father's, after my dad died, I had to go through the whole rigmarole of letting people know he had died, Social Security, his military retirement. There's so much that is involved with wrapping up someone's life. It really is. And so if you have a kind of handbook, for where to even start, like that's half of it's just like, I don't even know what phone call to make first, honestly, So what I like about this book is it's very self-sufficient. I'm not going to say it, but this is the front cover, or the front page. So, humorous. It's okay to laugh. It's okay to keep the humor light with the subject, because it's a very heavy subject to begin with. So, right at the beginning, it has written by, blah, 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 and it also has a little disclaimer there that says, this shouldn't be considered a legal document, and that's not what's intended. It's just kind of getting your thoughts, your things in order for someone that has to take this on when you die. And so right at the very beginning there's a spot that says before you read this journal, and there's a space to write whatever you think you want to write, and then there's data and documents. There's a section for that in this book. So they're all broken down into like categories in here. So they have important contacts, attorneys, doctors. What else was in here? Lots of relatives, and then friends and family. So, like, just the people that need to know that you died, for one, and maybe depending on who's been tasked with wrapping this up for you, they may not know all the people that need to know that you have moved on. This is really important. Device login information. There's all kinds of sections for this. So you can see computer. I'll see if I can put it up here. I don't know if you can read it. Anyway, it says phone, password, computer, emails, Facebook accounts, Instagram accounts, just different accounts. This is important. My dad had a whole little notebook, which probably a lot of people do, with your passwords, your logins, because it's not one across the board for everybody. So it's important to note those somewhere for somebody, because maybe you want your Facebook account shut right down when you die. Maybe you don't. Maybe you wanted to leave it up. I don't know. Another section in here that's is very important is my will information. So this is not your will. This is just kind of all the other stuff. But it's important that you have a will. And, you know, if you have anything to leave behind, a will is very important, especially if you have children or any, it's just important to have. I don't know how else to put it. But your will needs to be notarized, and, you know, it needs to be a legal document so that when you die, it is utilized as such. But it shouldn't be just willy-nilly around. My suggestion would be to get a safety deposit box to keep it, you know, and with that, either designate someone to have another key to your safety deposit box, or let them know where to find the key to your safety deposit box should something happen to you. I'd recommend this book go into your safety deposit box as well, or into like a fire safe, you know, home, like, you know, you get those little home safes that will protect it from fire and water damage and stuff. So at the very least, you know, and if you have all your account information, you don't want that just sitting out on your desk for anyone to be able to put their hands on. So, and then there's a section of my will information. Okay, and then we have the financial information, bank accounts, credit cards. You need to have most people do all of their stuff now online. So you've got your login, your password, and your secret code words, and your secret questions and all that. So it's important to list all those for your family, because they're going to have to settle that up for you. I used to say, you know, I don't care what happens or how much credit card debt I had. When I'm dead, they can't come get me. But that's not necessarily true. So any money you might be leaving to your family, they're going to deduct that probably first. So just keep that in mind, that they will need that information to pay off those debts for you. Another thing that was important, my dad was very diligent about keeping a running record of his monthly budget, bills he had to pay, his phone bill, his cable bill, his whatever he had going on there. So this has a section for that as well. So your current bills that will need to be settled up if you have a house that needs to be sold, and, you know, these utilities are going to have to be shut down. So, and often they're going to need a death certificate. So just keep that in mind. Property information. So if you own property, maybe it's a camp, maybe it's a house, maybe it's both, maybe you have lots of properties. But that information should be listed. You know, the loan, the account numbers, all the stuff. And then there's a section for my end-of-life care plan. So the wishes. This is great. And this first page is these are the people I want making medical decisions for me if I'm not able to make them for myself. This should also be a notarized documentation for your, you know, power of attorneys, because this is fine, and probably whoever you're listing would be the logical choice, but I'm not sure that this would hold up in a court of law, or, you know, if someone was going to dispute that. So get it, but it's good to note it just the same. And then it's and then it has a section of what I do not want at the end of my life. If my heart were to stop beating, do not attempt to restart it. So, you know, it's a DNR, but that also is something that should be documented legally. But this is good. This is good. This is a good backup, I would say. And then things I do want at the end of my life. I want to be pain-free. I want to die at home. I want hospice care. So there's different things. And then there's some of my end-of-life wishes. So there's a spot that you can put if you have additional thoughts. There's several pages for that. And then there's a section for my wishes for my spouse or significant other, where you can document that. Lots of pages for that. My wishes for my children, for my friends, for my family. Let's see. So then my letters. I like this part. Excuse me. Sorry. And this just says letter to, and it gives you space to write it to whoever. Your best friend, your best cousin, your favorite teacher, whoever, you know, but there's lots of sections to write a final letter to, which I think is beautiful. I've done that myself. I have them already tucked away for some people. This section, my apologies. Oops, sorry. My apologies. We've all probably done things in our life that we're not particularly proud of, and maybe we owe somebody an apology. Kids, friends, family, who knows? If you can't say it to their face, this is a good way to do it. You can write it down, and then this can be handed right over to them. So there's some pages for that. If you have any regrets, that, you know, I hope you don't. I hope you can resolve those before you die, but you can't always. So if it's on your mind and you're just not in a place where you can take care of that right now, verbally or in writing to someone, you know, write it down here. So then, recommendations for my funeral. And again, this is it. This is your last kind of hoorah, the last say you're going to get. So if there's things you really want, you know, like I think for me personally, I want a green burial. I'd like to just be one with the earth again. I don't need a headstone. I don't need, you know, maybe plant me under a tree or plant a tree on top of me. I don't care. If someone needs a place to go, I would think that would be better than a headstone. But that's just me. But then I thought, you know, I always thought I want people to have a big party, play 80s music, and drink and laugh and tell stories about dumb things I did or said, or things that made them laugh or made them cry, hopefully not cry in a bad way. But, you know, just, so I have some ideas of what I think would be a cool way to be sent off into the next realm. So, you know, those things are important to document. If there's something you really want. I remember my brother dated this girl years ago, and she told me her mother wanted them to play Hey Jude at her funeral, and she thought that was weird. I'm like, well, it's her wish. That's pretty cool. I don't know if she still feels that way. But anyway, so that's a spot that you could document some of that stuff. And maybe it's things you don't feel comfortable talking to your family about right now, but if you document it, then they'll be like, well, I didn't know she wanted, you know, everyone to dress like Helen from Three's Company. Helen Roper. Maybe they want to have a Helen Roper party. Who knows? Like, it doesn't matter, but this is the place to do it if you can't verbalize that or put it somewhere else. But this is great. And then the last section is just my last words. So if you have any final thoughts, I'll probably be able to fill this and then some, because I always have things to say. But and so anyway, that's just in a nutshell what you can expect from an end-of-life planner like this. And like I said, I'm not promoting any particular one, but just I would recommend going online, just Googling end-of-life planner, and do your family and friends a favor and document the stuff so that it's easy to find. That's half the battle. Like my mother was, you know, we were talking about, you know, where her insurance papers and whatever. She was, oh, they're in my lockbox. I'm like, no idea where that is. I don't even know where the key to that would be. So, you know, it's important to know at least where to put your hands on things in order to get the process started, because there is a lot to wrap up at the end of someone's life. And I remember thinking, oh, this will be an easy task. And my dad had made me, you know, the co-signer on his checking accounts because he was afraid he was going to stroke out, as he always put it, and I would have to write his checks and pay his bills for him. So the task kind of fell onto me when he died to wrap everything up. So it's a big, daunting task. It really is. So if you are able to do this now for your family, you know, and try to keep it updated. If you, you know, get rid of a credit card, or you get a new credit card, or you get a new loan, or you've paid off a loan, you know, just update your book as you go. Because it will make it easier for your friends and family after the fact. And if you care at all about that piece of it, or if you've ever been in the position where you've been like, oh my God, I have no idea where anything is, you know, this is a nice gift for your family or friends who have to take care of the stuff once you're gone. So anyway, that's just my little PSA for the day. And I will put my email address up if you have any questions, or if there's topics you would like me to discuss that I haven't discussed yet. If you have a story you'd like to share, please email me. Let me know. I would love to hear from you. As always, I wish you a gentle journey and blessings always. And we'll see you next time. Thanks for stopping by.